Former White House press secretary and the current governor of Arkansas, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, appeared on ABC. And obviously she's a big Trump supporter. And this did not go well. She was asked a question. It originally was about Liz Cheney, the former Republican congresswoman, endorsing Vice President Kamala Harris. And then it became about, but why is Liz Cheney endorsing Harris over Trump? A conservative Republican saying, even with all of our policy differences, Harris needs to be elected. Well, that's because of Trump's non-military coup attempts, right? She can't stand by someone who tried to abuse our Constitution that way. And watch the short-circuited sort of response here from Sarah Huckabee Sanders, where sort of like we saw with Doug Burgum in this different segment, she just starts saying a bunch of words, hoping that if she talks for long enough, you'll forget what the question was. She does not answer the question at all. And if the world made sense, this would be quite embarrassing to give such a ridiculous answer. But first, a reminder, the news was Liz Cheney, and then she announced her father, Dick Cheney. But let's just leave him out of the picture. Liz Cheney, that endorsement, I think, cool. And she is doing it on the grounds of Trump's threat to democracy. So with that in mind, you have Sarah Huckabee Sanders saying this.
Well, you heard from Liz Cheney, and obviously she's not alone among prominent Republicans that are supporting Kamala Harris or simply saying that Donald Trump is unfit for office. How do you square that record that you just talked about, which is obviously debatable and will be debated, with what happened at the end of the Trump presidency, where he did try to overturn a presidential election, tried to overturn a Democratic election?
I do think she actually is significantly in the minority here. You look across the board, prominent Republicans are supporting President Trump. But ultimately, I think she's a non-factor. I'm not trying to be rude, but you don't get to call yourself a conservative or a Republican when you support the most radical nominee that the Democrats have ever put up. That doesn't make you a conservative. It certainly doesn't make you a Republican. I think it makes you somebody who wants to protect the establishment. Frankly, I don't think this is news. It should come as no shock that Liz Cheney is not supporting the president. But what should come as a shock is that she is trying to call herself a conservative Republican or either one of those two words while supporting somebody who so clearly does not represent conservative principles.
Well on one...
Again, I'm trying to make sure all of you, especially new viewers of the show, hello, we really learn not to go, all right, yeah. Because in a technical sense and grammatically, those were sentences that made sense, right? She made statements that isolated in a vacuum made sense. She's saying Liz Cheney isn't a Republican that I care about the endorsement of. She's a rhino, whatever. Dumb point, but a point. But think about the question. Your guy... The reason, we're talking about the reason, not the person, but the reason that person is not supporting Trump is because she, as a Republican, watched her party stand by Trump as he engaged in allegedly illegal activity to take this beautiful American experiment we've been doing for a couple hundred years and go, nah, and throw it in the trash and say, I'm going to stay in power because I'm going to have Mike Pence count my fake electors, and I'm going to stay in power because I'm going to have local officials find votes that don't exist. And when all that doesn't work, I'm going to stay in power because my followers are going to go violently attack the Capitol to prevent the election from being certified, despite the fact that I didn't actually win the election. That is the most unconstitutional thing we've ever seen a president attempt. And so Sarah Huckabee Sanders, as someone who would say, I love the Constitution, how do you respond to that? Liz Cheney sucks. That's what we got from her, despite the nice language.
Well, on one specific that she pointed out, and others have too, Donald Trump is talking about, widespread tariffs on virtually everything that is imported into the United States.
By the way, Jonathan Karl, what was that? Hey, so your guy, did the coup thing. What do you think? Liz Cheney sucks. All right. What do you think of Trump's tariffs? No, follow up, presser. Expose her. Ask a follow-up question, Jonathan. You've been doing this longer than me, and I would ask a follow-up question. Oh, no. The majority of people who watch the show on a regular basis aren't actually subscribed to the channel. If you can make sure you are by clicking that subscribe button. Easy, free, simple, but makes all the difference. I greatly appreciate it to help us get the word out. Back to the video. I've said it before. Sometimes people go overboard with their all mainstream media sucks thing, but this sure gives people ammunition to say that. Oh, cool. You didn't answer my question? I don't care. Here's a new one. Try this one out for size.
Pointed out, and others have too, Donald Trump is talking about, widespread tariffs on virtually everything that is imported into the United States, big tariffs. It's become almost a centerpiece of his economic message right now. How is that conservative? I mean, I've been covering politics for a long time. Conservatives usually don't like taxes, don't like tariffs. Now Trump is talking about them all the time.
This is a president who uses that as a tool to hold others' feet to the fire. He wants to make sure that we're actually making things in America. There's nothing more conservative than empowering Americans and American companies to build things here versus building them overseas. We have to quit becoming completely dependent and reliant on people who hate us, people like China, people like Russia, people like Iran. We have a president now who has allowed himself to be completely walked all over, and a vice president who has been right there by his side, allowing other countries to take the lead. As we move into the next 4 years in the next administration, we have to decide, who do we want to be the world leaders? Do we want it to be the United States, or do we want it to be our adversaries like China, like Russia? Frankly, I don't want it to be them. I want it to be the United States. And there's only one person and one president and one administration who's done that before and will do it again, and it's Donald Trump. We certainly cannot count on.
Okay. And I don't have in this clip Jonathan Karl's response, but I know for certain 100% I'll put my life on it. That's a lot. Not my life. I'd put a lot on it that Jonathan Karl didn't respond with, oh, if that's a priority of yours, do you acknowledge this Axios reporting about how the U.S. is dominating the global economic war? This blah, blah, blah reporting about how China has for decades not experienced the absolute rattled nature of its economy compared to ours that they're currently experiencing, in part because of Biden-Harris administration policies. What do you say about this data that manufacturing has boomed under Biden-Harris, meaning people are making more things in America? But that's not going to be the response. What do you say about this? The Chips and Science Act, investing in the very manufacturing you're talking about that then would make us less dependent on other countries. I just don't know. In the grand scheme of things, I'm a baby. In this space, I mean, right? We're still pretty new. And I feel like you can, if you're just talking about politics and if you could just sort of stumble across some of these follow-up questions you could have in your back pocket, I don't know why. It's like some of these folks, and no personal offense, Jonathan Karl, he does a bunch of great work, but it's like he doesn't even have a back pocket. So that's a big takeaway from this as well. But again, she didn't really say much other than, yeah, we're good with sort of more big government type things if we want it. So that was never really a principle. And we apply that to obviously women's bodily autonomy, or when there's gay penguins in books, we got to get that out. My kid's got to be gay. And when it comes to stuff like this, but also, I think a lot of these Republicans are please, Trump, don't do this tariff plan. Because they know this would be really, really bad. Just across the board, adding something that would definitely be inflationary and isn't super strategic. Often these tariffs you can implement in a way strategically in specific industries that you feel like the increased prices is necessary because of the jobs that will come of it, and you can make those economic arguments, and those have been debated forever as to where that balance is best. But Trump's simple brain just goes, tariffs, you disincentivize foreign imports, do it all, which would cause an economic crisis for a lot of Americans. The way he's saying he's going to address inflation is by something that every economist agrees is inflationary. Fighting fire with fire, I guess. And then because Liz Cheney was the center of this discussion, here's her, I think, also on the same program.
So, bottom line, why did you make this decision?
Sorry, no, one more time. A little bit more heat the way of quote-unquote mainstream media and a lot of different people and a lot of different things going on there. But isn't it interesting? Dana Bash goes to Kamala Harris, why'd you flip-flop on wanting to ban fracking? Which, fair question. Great. Kamala Harris says, since 2020, I've had the same view, and I'm not going to ban fracking. And then she goes, but why'd you change your view? Since 2020, I haven't changed my view. In 2019, though, you had a different view. Why'd you change your view? What happened? I have the same view. I just said that. Okay, but in 2019, you said this, quote, blah, 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 and you've since changed your view. Why do you have a different view? What gave you this enlightenment? Kamala Harris answers it again. Fine. I like journalism. That's aggressive. But then Sarah Huckabee Sanders gets to say Liz Cheney isn't a real Republican in response to a question about a constitutional crisis that happened under the last guy. And Jonathan Garl moves on. I know, two different hosts, but it's one of those things that infuriates people. That does feel like a double standard, but here's Liz Cheney.
So, bottom line, why did you make this decision to support Harris, and why did you do it now?
Yeah, I've been voting for 40 years. My first vote I ever cast was for Ronald Reagan in 1984. I've never voted for a Democrat.
Wow.
And it tells you, I think, the stakes in this election. Donald Trump presents a challenge and a threat fundamentally to the republic. We see it on a daily basis. Somebody who was willing to use violence in order to attempt to seize power, to stay in power. Someone who represents unrecoverable catastrophe, frankly, in my view. And we have to do everything possible to ensure that he doesn't, that he's not reelected. Given how close this race is, in my view, again, it's not enough. You have many Republicans out there who are saying, well, we're not going to vote for him, but we will write someone else in.
Right.
And I think that this time around, that's not enough. That it's important to actually cast a vote for Vice President Harris.
I want
So, of course, some people say, this is the bare minimum. Her standing up for the Constitution, right? I don't know why I did this. That's how cheap it is. Standing up for the Constitution, that's what you're doing. Is the bare minimum. Why are we applauding so much when obviously this is what you should do if you care about our democracy? But no, guys, we gotta applaud sometimes. Because, to use a phrase, we have to create a safe space, genuinely, for people who want to leave the Republican Party, at least in its MAGA form. And if the response to the Chris Christie's or the Liz Cheney's or the Adam Kinzinger's, but you Republicans, so you bolstered this and you're terrible and get out of here too, then there's not really going to be the incentive structure and the environment that promotes people doing what is difficult. I do think I agree it's a bare minimum, but it is still difficult to break away from everything you've ever known, all of your often family and friends and your career and your identity in politics, to say, I'm going to vote for someone that probably Liz Cheney hates a lot of the policies. I don't know why she does, but she probably does. Because I actually do understand that every conversation we have is built on the foundation of a functioning democracy. And I'm going to stand up for that, not just by staying quiet and not supporting Trump, but by overtly supporting Vice President Kamala Harris. Because it's not a sit-out sort of election or write-in. It's everything's on the line. And credit to Liz Cheney for bringing this up. And again, the question that was posed to Sarah Huckabee Sanders was not, why do you not like Liz Cheney? But what about that argument? And I've yet to hear a compelling argument from a MAGA person as to why Trump's behavior was justified and why it doesn't represent a threat to our democracy. Let me know what you thought of that in the comments. Click the join button below to support the show.